The morning sun cast long shadows across Jefferson Heights, a quiet suburb nestled just outside of Philadelphia. The autumn leaves had begun their transformation, painting the neighborhood in shades of amber and crimson. Maya Thompson walked along the cracked sidewalk, her worn backpack slung over one shoulder, her eyes fixed on the familiar path to Westbrook Academy. She was 15 years old, with dark curly hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and brown eyes that carried a wisdom beyond her years. Her uniform, though clean and pressed, showed signs of careful mending at the seams. The navy blazer was slightly too large, a hand-me-down from the school's donation closet, but Maya wore it with quiet dignity. Westbrook Academy wasn't the kind of school where Maya would have naturally found herself. It was a prestigious private institution where the children of lawyers, doctors, and business executives received their education. The tuition alone cost more than her mother made in 6 months. But Maya was there on a full academic scholarship, one of only 3 students in the entire school who didn't come from wealth. As she approached the iron gates of the school, Maya could already see the expensive cars lined up in the drop-off lane. Mercedes, BMWs, the occasional Tesla. Parents in designer clothes kissing their children goodbye before heading off to important jobs. Maya walked past them all invisible, just another face in the crowd. "Hey Maya, wait up!" She turned to see her best friend, Destiny Williams, jogging to catch up. Destiny was also on scholarship, a basketball prodigy who had been recruited from the same neighborhood as Maya. Where Maya was quiet and studious, Destiny was loud and confident, her braids swinging as she moved. "Girl, you walk fast," Destiny said, slightly out of breath. "What's the rush?" Maya shrugged. "Just wanted to get to class early. We have that history test today." "The one you've been studying for all week?" Destiny laughed. "Maya, you could probably teach that class yourself." They walked through the main doors together, entering the marble-floored lobby that always made Maya feel like she was entering a museum rather than a school. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and portraits of the school's founders lined the walls. Everything about Westbrook Academy whispered of old money and privilege. "Did you finish the reading for English?" Maya asked as they walked toward their lockers. "Most of it," Destiny admitted. "Coach had us doing extra drills yesterday. My arms are still sore." Maya nodded sympathetically. She understood the pressure Destiny was under. The scholarship wasn't just about academics for her friend. It was about performance on the court. One bad season, one injury, and Destiny could lose everything. They reached their lockers, which were conveniently located next to each other. Maya spun the combination and pulled out her textbooks, carefully arranging them in order of her classes. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone, checking the time. The phone was an older model iPhone, its screen protected by a cheap plastic case that had started to yellow with age. It had been a gift from her mother last year, a refurbished model bought with months of saved tips from her job at the diner. Maya treasured it more than any student at Westbrook treasured their latest devices. "You hear about Mrs. Blackwell?" Destiny whispered, leaning in conspiratorially. Maya's stomach tightened at the name. "What about her?" "Apparently she failed like 5 kids last semester. Parents complained, but the principal backed her up. She's supposed to be even harder this year." Mrs. Victoria Blackwell was the advanced English literature teacher, and she was legendary at Westbrook for all the wrong reasons. In her mid-50s, with silver-streaked hair always pulled back in a severe bun, she'd been teaching at the school for over 20 years. Her family had been benefactors of the institution for generations, which meant she operated with a level of impunity that other teachers didn't enjoy. Maya had managed to avoid having Mrs. Blackwell as a teacher until this year, but now, as a sophomore taking advanced classes, there was no escaping her. "I've heard she doesn't like scholarship students," Maya said quietly. Destiny snorted. "That's putting it mildly. Remember what she said to Marcus last year?" Maya remembered. Marcus Chen, another scholarship student, had answered a question incorrectly in Mrs. Blackwell's class. Instead of simply correcting him, The teacher had launched into a lecture about how some students were simply not suited for advanced academics, regardless of what diversity initiatives might suggest. Marcus had transferred to a different school by the end of that semester. The first bell rang, signaling that students had 10 minutes to get to their first period classes. Maya closed her locker and took a deep breath. "Hey," Destiny said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "You've got this. You're the smartest person I know." Maya managed a small smile. "Thanks, Des." They parted ways, Destiny heading to the gym for her first period athletics class, while Maya made her way to room 312, Mrs. Blackwell's domain. The classroom was already half full when Maya arrived. She chose a seat in the middle row, not wanting to seem too eager by sitting at the front, but not wanting to appear disengaged by sitting in the back. She placed her textbook on the desk, along with her notebook and a mechanical pencil. The room filled up quickly with students chatting about their weekends, their plans for the upcoming fall break, the party someone's parents were hosting. Maya kept to herself, reviewing her notes from the previous class. She had read the assigned chapters twice and had written detailed annotations in the margins of her book. At exactly 8 o'clock, Mrs. Blackwell entered the room. The chatter died immediately. She was a tall woman, thin in a way that seemed almost aggressive, dressed in a grey wool suit that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. Her eyes swept across the room like a hawk surveying a field of mice. "Good morning, class," she said, her voice crisp and cold. "I trust you all completed the reading on Victorian literature and its social commentary." There was a murmur of assent from the students. Mrs. Blackwell's gaze landed on Maya, lingering for just a moment longer than necessary. Maya felt her cheeks flush, but held the teacher's stare until the older woman looked away. "We'll begin with a discussion of Charles Dickens and his portrayal of class distinctions in Great Expectations," Mrs. Blackwell continued, moving to stand behind her desk. "Can anyone tell me how Dickens uses Pip's journey to critique the Victorian obsession with social advancement?" Several hands went up. Mrs. Blackwell called on Madison Prescott, the daughter of a prominent surgeon, whose answer was competent, if unremarkable. The teacher nodded, offering a thin smile of approval. "And how does the character of Estella represent the corruption of the upper classes?" Mrs. Blackwell asked next. Maya raised her hand. She had a particular insight about this, having spent the previous night carefully analyzing the text. Mrs. Blackwell's eyes passed over Maya's raised hand as if it weren't there. "Mr. Harrison, would you like to attempt an answer?" Tyler Harrison, whose family owned a chain of car dealerships, stumbled through a response that was factually incorrect. Mrs. Blackwell gently corrected him, her tone far kinder than Maya had expected. The class continued in this pattern. Maya raised her hand 6 more times. Each time, Mrs. Blackwell ignored her, calling on other students whose answers ranged from mediocre to outright wrong. By the end of the hour, Maya's arm ached from holding it up, and a familiar burning sensation had taken root in her chest. "For tomorrow, I want a 2-page analysis of the symbolism of Satis House," Mrs. Blackwell announced as the bell approached. "And remember, this isn't public school. I expect graduate-level work." As the students began packing up, Maya lingered for a moment. She told herself she should just let it go, but something pushed her forward. "Mrs. Blackwell." The teacher looked up from her desk, her expression unreadable. "Yes?" "I was wondering if I could ask about the discussion today. I had some thoughts about the symbolism of Miss Havisham's wedding dress that I didn't get a chance to share." Mrs. Blackwell's lips pressed into a thin line. "Office hours are on Thursdays, Miss Thompson. I don't have time for individual consultations during class transitions." "I understand, but I just thought—" "What you thought is irrelevant," Mrs. Blackwell interrupted, her voice sharpening. "If you want to participate in class discussions, you need to have something worth saying. Simply raising your hand doesn't entitle you to speak." Maya felt as if she'd been slapped. "But I did have something to say. You never called on me." Mrs. Blackwell stood, gathering her papers. "Perhaps that should tell you something about the quality of your contributions thus far. Some students are here to learn, Miss Thompson. Others are here because of quota systems and well-meaning but misguided policies. It's important to know which category you fall into. The words hung in the air, ugly and undeniable. Maya felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "My scholarship is based on academic merit," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Not on any quota." Mrs. Blackwell smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "If that helps you sleep at night. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a faculty meeting." She swept past Maya, leaving the girl standing alone in the empty classroom. Maya didn't cry. She had learned long ago that tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. Instead, she gathered her books and walked to her next class, her jaw set with determination. She would prove Mrs. Blackwell wrong. She would show everyone at this school that she belonged here, that she had earned her place through hard work and intelligence. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maya went through the motions of her other classes, taking notes, answering questions when called upon, but her mind kept returning to that morning, to the dismissive way Mrs. Blackwell had looked at her, to the poisonous words that had cut deeper than any knife. At lunch, she found Destiny in their usual spot, a table in the corner of the cafeteria that was far enough from the other students to afford some privacy. "You look like someone kicked your puppy," Destiny observed, sliding a container of homemade food across the table. "Eat. My mom made extra." Maya took the food gratefully. Mrs. Williams always cooked like she was feeding an army, and she had all but adopted Maya as a second daughter. "It's Mrs. Blackwell," Maya admitted between bites of perfectly seasoned chicken. Destiny's expression darkened. "What did she do?" Maya recounted the events of the morning, from being ignored during the discussion to the confrontation afterward. By the time she finished, Destiny was gripping her fork like she wanted to use it as a weapon. "That's discrimination," Destiny said flatly. "Plain and simple." "Try proving it," Maya replied wearily. "She never said anything directly about race or income. She's too smart for that. It's all implications and plausible deniability. But there has to be something we can do. Talk to the principal, file a complaint." "The Blackwell family has donated millions to this school," Maya interrupted. "Her grandfather helped found this place. Who do you think they're going to believe? A scholarship student with no proof, or a teacher who's been here for 2 decades? Destiny fell silent, knowing Maya was right but hating it anyway. "I'm just going to keep my head down," Maya continued. "Do the work, get the grades, and get out of her class at the end of the year. That's the plan." "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, Des. We've known that since we were kids." The afternoon classes came and went. Maya threw herself into her studies, using the familiar comfort of learning to push down the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. By the time the final bell rang, she was exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. She walked home alone, Destiny having stayed for basketball practice. The autumn wind had picked up, carrying the smell of dead leaves and distant bonfires. Maya pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself and quickened her pace. The apartment complex where she lived was a stark contrast to the manicured grounds of Westbrook Academy. The paint was peeling, the stairs creaked, and the parking lot was more potholes than pavement. But it was home, and it was what her mother could afford. Maya climbed to the 3rd floor and let herself in with her key. The apartment was small but clean, the furniture second-hand but carefully arranged. Photos lined the walls, mostly of Maya at various ages, documenting her journey from a gap-toothed child to the young woman she was becoming. "Mom!" Maya called out, dropping her backpack by the door. "In the kitchen, baby." Maya followed the voice and the smell of cooking food to find her mother standing at the stove. Angela Thompson was in her early 40s, with the same dark curly hair as her daughter, though hers was streaked with premature grey. She was still wearing her work clothes from the district attorney's office, where she worked as a paralegal. "How was school?" Angela asked, stirring a pot of soup. "Fine," Maya said automatically. Angela turned. her sharp eyes studying her daughter's face. She had spent years learning to read people, first as a single mother navigating a difficult world, and later as someone who worked alongside prosecutors every day. "Try again," she said gently. Maya sighed, sinking into a chair at the small kitchen table. "There's this teacher, Mrs. Blackwell. She's the worst." "Worst how?" Maya told her mother everything, just as she had told Destiny. But where Destiny had responded with anger, Angela listened quietly, her expression thoughtful. "And you're sure she's targeting you specifically?" Angela asked when Maya finished. "Me and the other scholarship students. She barely looks at us, and when she does, it's like we're dirt under her shoes." Angela nodded slowly. "I've seen this before. People who use their position to make others feel small. It's a particular kind of cruelty. So what do I do?" Angela moved to the table and sat across from her daughter. She took Maya's hands in her own, her grip warm and reassuring. "You do exactly what you're doing," she said. "You work hard, you stay focused, and you don't let her break you. People like that want to see you fail. The best revenge is proving them wrong." "But what if I can't? What if she makes my life so miserable that I can't succeed?" "Then we'll deal with that if it happens. But Maya, you are brilliant. You earned that scholarship on your own merit, no matter what anyone says. Never forget that." Maya nodded, drawing strength from her mother's words. Angela Thompson had raised her daughter alone since Maya was 3 years old, when her father had walked out and never looked back. She had worked multiple jobs, sacrificed her own dreams, and fought tooth and nail to give Maya every opportunity. If her mother believed in her, Maya could believe in herself. "Now," Angela said, standing up, "dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Go wash up and start on your homework." "Yes, ma'am." Maya retreated to her small bedroom, which doubled as her study space. Her desk was covered with textbooks and notes, organized in a system only she understood. She pulled out her English assignment and began to work. The essay on Satis House came easily. Maya poured everything into it, all her frustration and determination, crafting an analysis that was both intellectually rigorous and emotionally resonant. By the time her mother called her for dinner, she had written 4 pages, twice the required length. The next morning, Maya arrived at school early. She wanted to be prepared, to have extra time to center herself before facing Mrs. Blackwell again. The halls were quiet. Only a few early arrivals wandering the corridors. She made her way to her locker and was surprised to find a note taped to the door. It was written on expensive stationery, the kind sold in the boutique shops downtown. "Scholarship kids should know their place. Some of us actually belong here." Maya crumpled the note and shoved it in her pocket. It wasn't the first time she'd received such messages, and she doubted it would be the last. She had learned to ignore them, to not give whoever was behind them the satisfaction of a reaction. The day began much like the previous one. Mrs. Blackwell taught her class with the same cold efficiency, the same barely concealed contempt for certain students. But this time, Maya didn't raise her hand. She sat quietly, taking notes, giving the teacher no reason to single her out. When Mrs. Blackwell asked for the essays to be turned in, Maya placed hers on the growing pile with the others. She noticed the teacher's eyes flicker to her name at the top of the page, but Mrs. Blackwell said nothing. The week continued in this pattern. Maya kept her head down, did her work, and avoided any interaction with Mrs. Blackwell beyond what was absolutely necessary. It was exhausting, constantly monitoring herself, constantly on guard. But it seemed to be working. Until Friday. The incident began innocently enough. Maya was sitting in Mrs. Blackwell's class, her phone tucked away in her backpack as required by school policy. She never used it during class, never even thought about it. But halfway through the period, her backpack began to vibrate. At first, Maya ignored it, but the vibrating continued, growing more insistent. Someone was calling her repeatedly. Mrs. Blackwell paused mid-sentence, her eyes scanning the room. "Whose phone is that?" Maya felt her face flush. She raised her hand. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Blackwell, it's mine. I'll turn it off right away." She reached for her backpack, but before she could unzip it, Mrs. Blackwell was striding down the aisle toward her. "Give it to me," the teacher demanded, her hand outstretched. "I'll turn it off," Maya said quickly. "I'm sorry, it won't happen again." "I said give it to me. School policy is clear. Phones that disrupt class are confiscated." Maya hesitated. She knew her rights. The school policy said phones could be confiscated, but they were supposed to be held in the office and returned at the end of the day. She had no reason to think Mrs. Blackwell would handle it differently. With trembling hands, she pulled the phone from her backpack and handed it over. Mrs. Blackwell looked at the device with undisguised disdain. "This is what counts as a phone these days. It looks like something from a museum." A few students snickered. Maya felt her cheeks burn, but said nothing. "Perhaps," Mrs. Blackwell continued, turning the phone over in her hands, "if your family spent less time acquiring outdated technology and more time teaching you proper classroom behavior, you might actually belong in a school like this." The words were like a match thrown on gasoline. Maya felt something inside her snap, 2 weeks of frustration and humiliation boiling over. "That phone was a gift from my mother," she said, her voice low but steady. "She worked hard to buy it for me, and I do belong here. I earned my place." The classroom went silent. Every student was watching now, sensing the tension crackling in the air. Mrs. Blackwell's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. "Earned your place. By filling a quota, you mean? By taking a spot that should have gone to a student who actually deserved it. My scholarship is based on academic merit. My GPA was the highest in my entire middle school. I scored in the top 1% on the entrance exam. You don't know anything about me." "I know exactly what you are," Mrs. Blackwell replied, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're a reminder of everything that's wrong with education today. You're a charity case pretending to be a scholar, and no amount of affirmative action will change that." Maya stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You can't talk to me like that. I can talk to you however I please. This is my classroom, and you are nothing more than a guest here, one who has clearly overstayed her welcome. I'm going to report this. What you're saying is discrimination." Mrs. Blackwell laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "Report what? My professional assessment of your performance. Good luck with that." She turned away, dismissively, Maya's phone still in her hand, and then, in a movement that seemed almost casual, she raised the phone and brought it down hard against the edge of her desk. The crack of the screen shattering echoed through the silent room. Maya couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She watched as Mrs. Blackwell dropped the broken phone into the trash can beside her desk. "Oops," the teacher said, her voice flat. "It slipped." For a long moment, nobody spoke. The students sat frozen in their seats, too shocked to react. Maya felt tears streaming down her face, but she made no sound. She stared at the trash can where her phone lay, the phone her mother had saved for months to buy, the phone that represented love and sacrifice and hope. "Miss Thompson, you are disrupting my class," Mrs. Blackwell said calmly, as if nothing had happened. "I suggest you take your seat and compose yourself, or you can leave." Maya gathered her books with shaking hands. She didn't look at anyone as she walked to the door. She didn't see the shocked faces of her classmates, the few who looked genuinely distressed by what they had witnessed. She didn't see Tyler Harrison quietly pulling out his own phone under his desk, pressing record just before she reached the door. She walked out of the classroom, down the hall, and out the front doors of the school. She walked until she found a bench in the small park across the street, and there, finally alone, she let herself cry. The phone had been a symbol of everything she and her mother had built together, and now it was gone, destroyed by a woman who saw her as nothing more than a quota to be tolerated. Maya didn't know how long she sat there. The autumn wind dried her tears even as more fell. She thought about her mother, who would be at work right now, who would come home exhausted only to find out that the gift she had worked so hard to give had been deliberately destroyed. She thought about giving up, about telling her mother that Westbrook Academy wasn't worth it, that she wanted to go back to public school where at least she wasn't made to feel like garbage every day. But then she thought about Mrs. Blackwell's face, the satisfaction in her eyes when the phone shattered, and Maya realized that giving up was exactly what the teacher wanted. It would prove every hateful word she had ever said. Maya wiped her eyes and pulled out the crumpled note from her pocket, the one that had been left on her locker. She read it again. Scholarship kids should know their place. She tore the note into tiny pieces and let the wind carry them away. Her place was wherever she decided it was, and she wasn't going anywhere. When Angela Thompson got the call from her daughter's school, she was in the middle of reviewing case files for the district attorney. The caller ID showed Westbrook Academy's main line, and her heart immediately began to race. Hello? Mrs. Thompson? This is Principal Warner from Westbrook Academy. We need you to come to the school as soon as possible. There's been an incident involving your daughter. Angela's blood ran cold. Is Maya okay? Is she hurt? She's not injured, but there's a serious situation that requires your immediate attention. I can't discuss the details over the phone. 20 minutes later, Angela pulled into the visitor parking lot of Westbrook Academy. She had never been inside the school before, Maya always insisting that she could handle everything on her own. Now, walking through the ornate doors, Angela understood why her daughter had been reluctant to invite her. Everything about this place screamed money and privilege. The marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the portraits of stern-looking men in expensive suits. It was as far from their modest apartment as Mars was from Earth. The receptionist directed her to the principal's office, a corner suite on the second floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the manicured grounds. Principal Warner was a man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of practiced smile that politicians used when they were about to deliver bad news. Maya was already there, sitting in a chair across from the principal's desk. Her eyes were red from crying, but her posture was straight, her chin lifted defiantly. "Mom," she said, her voice cracking. Angela went to her daughter immediately, wrapping her arms around her. "It's okay, baby. I'm here." Principal Warner cleared his throat. "Please, Mrs. Thompson, have a seat. We have a lot to discuss." Angela reluctantly released Maya and took the chair beside her. "What happened?" The principal folded his hands on his desk. "There was an incident today in Mrs. Blackwell's class. According to the teacher's report, Maya's phone went off during instruction, disrupting the lesson. When Mrs. Blackwell confiscated the phone, Maya became verbally aggressive and confrontational. During the altercation, the phone was accidentally damaged." "Accidentally?" Maya's voice was sharp. "She smashed it against her desk on purpose." "Maya, please," Principal Warner said, his tone patronizing. "Let me explain the situation to your mother." Angela held up a hand. "I want to hear my daughter's version of events." Maya told her everything, from the months of being ignored and belittled to the confrontation that morning. She described how Mrs. Blackwell had mocked her phone, made comments about quotas and charity cases, and then deliberately destroyed her property. When she finished, Angela's face was a mask of carefully controlled fury. She turned to the principal. "And what is the school's response to this?" Principal Warner shifted uncomfortably. "Mrs. Blackwell is a valued member of our faculty. Her family has deep connections to this institution. While I understand that Maya is upset, I have to consider all perspectives here." "All perspectives," Angela repeated flatly. "Including the perspective of a teacher who apparently destroys students' property and makes discriminatory comments? Those are allegations, Mrs. Thompson. Maya is the only one making these claims." "I'm not making it up," Maya cried. "The whole class saw it happen." "I've spoken with several students," the principal said. "None of them corroborate your version of events." Angela felt her jaw tighten. Of course they didn't. These were the children of wealthy families who had no reason to go against a teacher with power and connections. Why would they stick their necks out for a scholarship student? "So what are you proposing?" Angela asked. Under the circumstances, I think it would be best if Maya apologized to Mrs. Blackwell for her outburst. We'll chalk this up to a misunderstanding and move forward. Apologize? Maya was on her feet now. She destroyed my phone. She said horrible things to me. Maya, sit down, Principal Warner said firmly. This kind of emotional reaction is exactly why... Why what? Angela interrupted, rising to stand beside her daughter. Why you don't think she belongs here? The principal's face reddened. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Angela's voice was cold and precise, the voice she used in depositions when she knew she had a hostile witness cornered. Let me be very clear about something, Principal Warner. I work for the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. I spend my days reviewing cases of discrimination, harassment, and abuse of power. And what you've just described to me sounds exactly like the kind of situation that ends up on my desk. The color drained from Principal Warner's face. Mrs. Thompson, I don't think there's any need for... There's every need. My daughter has been subjected to months of harassment by a teacher who apparently believes that scholarship students are lesser than her wealthy pupils. Today, that teacher deliberately destroyed my daughter's property while making discriminatory comments in front of an entire class, and your response is to ask Maya to apologize. I'm sure we can find a resolution that works for everyone. The resolution is this, Angela said, cutting him off. You will launch a formal investigation into Mrs. Blackwell's conduct. You will interview every student in that classroom today, and you will do so with a neutral party present. My daughter's phone will be replaced at the school's expense. And if I find out that any retaliation occurs against Maya for this complaint, I will personally ensure that the district attorney's office takes an interest in how this institution handles discrimination claims. Principal Warner was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he nodded. I'll look into the matter. You'll do more than look into it. You'll take it seriously, because I promise you, Principal Warner, I take it very seriously. Angela put her arm around Maya's shoulders. Come on, baby. We're going home. They walked out of the office together, Maya leaning into her mother's embrace. She had never seen her mother like that before, so fierce and commanding. It made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in weeks. Mom, she whispered as they walked down the hall, I'm sorry about the phone. Angela stopped and turned to face her daughter. Listen to me. That phone was just a thing. Things can be replaced. What matters is that you stood up for yourself. You didn't let that woman break you. But now she's going to hate me even more. And the other students will do what teenagers always do. Some will be cruel, some will surprise you. But Maya, you can't spend your life trying to make people like you who are determined to see you as less than. You just keep being excellent and let your success speak for itself. Maya nodded, drawing strength from her mother's words. As they reached the car, Angela's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw a text from an unknown number. Tyler Harrison here. I was in your daughter's class today. I recorded what happened. Thought you might want to see it. Angela showed the message to Maya, who looked as surprised as her mother felt. Tyler Harrison? Maya said. He's one of the popular kids. His family is really rich. Why would he help me? Maybe because doing the right thing isn't about money, Angela replied. Let's find out. She typed back a quick response, asking Tyler to send the video to her email. Within minutes, her phone pinged with the new message. They got in the car, but before Angela started the engine, she pulled up the video on her phone. Maya leaned over to watch. The footage was shaky, clearly filmed from under a desk, but it captured everything. Mrs. Blackwell's mocking comments about the phone, Maya's dignified response, the teacher's venomous words about quotas and charity cases, and then, unmistakably, Mrs. Blackwell raising the phone and bringing it down against the desk with deliberate force. It slipped, the teacher's voice said sarcastically in the video. Angela paused the recording. Her face was expressionless, but Maya could see the fire burning in her eyes. This changes everything, Angela said quietly. What are you going to do? Angela started the car. First, I'm going to make sure this video is preserved in multiple locations. Then I'm going to have a conversation with a few colleagues. And then, Maya, we're going to make sure that what happened to you never happens to another student at that school. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Angela contacted the school board directly, bypassing Principal Warner entirely. She filed a formal complaint with the State Department of Education. She reached out to civil rights organizations who specialized in educational discrimination. And through it all, Maya went back to school. She held her head high, walked through those marble halls, and refused to let anyone see her flinch. Mrs. Blackwell was noticeably absent from class, replaced by a substitute teacher who seemed confused about why she had been called in on such short notice. The rumor mill churned with speculation. Some students whispered that Maya was a troublemaker who had gotten a beloved teacher in hot water. Others, emboldened by the growing scandal, came forward with their own stories of Mrs. Blackwell's cruelty. Destiny stayed by Maya's side through all of it, her loyalty unwavering. "You're like a hero," she told Maya during lunch one day, standing up to her like that. "I'm not a hero," Maya replied. "I'm just tired of being pushed around." That's exactly what a hero would say. A week after the incident, Maya was called to the principal's office again, but this time, when she arrived, she found a very different scene waiting for her. Principal Warner sat behind his desk, looking like a man who had aged 10 years in 7 days. Beside him sat a woman Maya didn't recognize, introduced as a representative from the school board. And across from them, in chairs arranged like a tribunal, sat Angela Thompson and a man in an expensive suit who turned out to be the district attorney himself. "Please have a seat, Maya," the school board representative said, her voice gentle. Maya sat, her heart pounding. She looked at her mother, who gave her a small, reassuring nod. "After a thorough investigation," the representative continued, "including review of video evidence and interviews with multiple students and faculty members, the board has reached a decision regarding the incident involving Mrs. Victoria Blackwell." She paused, looking down at a folder in her hands. "Mrs. Blackwell's employment with Westbrook Academy has been terminated, effective immediately. Additionally, the board will be implementing new policies regarding the treatment of scholarship students and the handling of discrimination complaints. Maya, we owe you an apology. What happened to you should never have occurred, and we are committed to ensuring it doesn't happen again." Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. "The school will also be compensating you for the destroyed phone," the representative added, "and Mrs. Blackwell will face civil consequences for her actions." After the meeting, Maya and her mother walked out of the school together. The autumn sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maya felt lighter than she had in months. "You did this," she said to her mother. "You saved me." Angela shook her head. "You saved yourself, baby. You stood up for what was right, even when it was terrifying. All I did was make sure people listened." "I was so scared," Maya admitted. "I still am a little. What if the other students blame me for Mrs. Blackwell being fired?" "Some might," Angela said honestly. "But others will respect you for it, and the ones who blame you, they're not worth your time anyway." They reached the car and paused, looking back at the school's grand facade. "You know," Angela said, "when I was your age, I dreamed of going to a school like this. I thought it would solve all my problems, open all the doors. But the truth is, the building doesn't matter. What matters is what's inside you. Your courage, your intelligence, your heart. Those things will take you wherever you want to go, Maya. Don't ever forget that." Maya leaned into her mother's embrace. "I won't." The next chapter of Maya's life at Westbrook Academy began the following Monday. She walked through the gates with her head held high, a new phone in her pocket, courtesy of the school's settlement. But more than the phone, she carried with her a new sense of confidence. The halls felt different now. Some students averted their eyes when they saw her, whispering to their friends as she passed. Others nodded in acknowledgement, a few even offering small smiles. Maya had become something of a legend overnight, the scholarship girl who had taken down the untouchable Mrs. Blackwell. Destiny was waiting at her locker, practically bouncing with excitement. "Girl, have you seen the news?" Maya frowned. "What news?" Destiny thrust her phone into Maya's hands. On the screen was a local news article, the headline reading, "Private school teacher terminated after video shows discrimination against scholarship student." Maya's stomach dropped. "This is public?" "Very public. Someone leaked the video. It's got like 1 million views already." Maya scrolled through the article, her heart racing. The story detailed everything. Mrs. Blackwell's comments, the destruction of the phone, the school's initial attempt to cover it up. There were quotes from other students who had come forward with their own experiences. And at the bottom, a statement from the district attorney's office about investigating potential civil rights violations. "This is insane," Maya breathed. "This is justice," Destiny corrected. "Finally, someone at this school is being held accountable for treating us like garbage." The first class of the day was English, held in the same room where the incident had occurred. Maya hesitated at the door, memories flooding back, the crack of her phone shattering, the cold satisfaction in Mrs. Blackwell's eyes, the humiliation of having her entire class witness her degradation. "You okay?" Destiny asked, noticing her friend's reluctance. Maya took a deep breath. "Yeah, I'm okay." She walked into the classroom and took her seat. The substitute teacher, a young woman named Ms. Rodriguez, smiled warmly at her as she entered. "Good morning, Maya. I've heard a lot about you." Maya felt her cheeks flush. "I hope not all of it was bad." "On the contrary, I think what you did was incredibly brave." The class was quieter than usual, the other students casting glances at Maya when they thought she wasn't looking. But halfway through the period, something unexpected happened. Madison Prescott, the surgeon's daughter who had always run in the most exclusive circles, raised her hand. "Ms. Rodriguez, I was wondering if we could talk about something that's not in the curriculum today." The substitute looked surprised. "What did you have in mind?" Madison turned to face Maya directly. "I wanted to apologize to Maya." The room went silent. "When Mrs. Blackwell was saying all those things," Madison continued, her voice shaking slightly, "I just sat there. I didn't say anything. I was too afraid of what she might do to me, of what it might mean for my grades or my college applications. But that was wrong. I should have stood up for you, and I didn't." Maya was stunned. Of all the people she had expected to speak up, Madison Prescott was at the bottom of the list. "It's okay," Maya said finally. "I understand." "No, it's not okay. I've been thinking about it all week. Mrs. Blackwell treated you terribly, and she treated other scholarship students the same way. I knew it was happening, and I did nothing. That makes me part of the problem." Other students were nodding now, some looking ashamed, others thoughtful. "Maybe we can all do better," Ms. Rodriguez suggested gently. "Maybe this can be a fresh start for everyone." The rest of the class period turned into an impromptu discussion about discrimination, privilege, and responsibility. Students who had never spoken to Maya before shared their own perspectives, some admitting to prejudices they hadn't even realized they held. It was uncomfortable and awkward and messy, but it was also real. When the bell rang, Maya gathered her books slowly, still processing what had just happened. "Hey!" She looked up to find Tyler Harrison standing beside her desk. He was tall and athletic, with sandy brown hair and the kind of easy confidence that came with growing up wealthy. "I wanted to make sure you got my video," he said. "I wasn't sure if it would help, but I figured it was worth a shot." "It helped," Maya said. "More than you know, thank you." Tyler shrugged. "Mrs. Blackwell was always awful. I just never had the guts to do anything about it until I saw you stand up to her. That took guts." "Or stupidity," Maya replied with a small smile. "Maybe a little of both." Tyler grinned. "Hey, a bunch of us are getting lunch off campus today. You should come." Maya hesitated. Lunch off campus was a privilege reserved for upperclassmen and their friends. an unspoken tradition that defined the social hierarchy of Westbrook Academy. "I don't want to intrude," she said. "You're not intruding. I'm inviting you." Tyler's expression was sincere. "Look, I know things have been rough for you here, but maybe it doesn't have to stay that way. People can change." Maya thought about it for a moment, then she nodded. "Okay, let me tell Destiny. Bring her too. The more the merrier." That lunch period marked a turning point. Maya and Destiny found themselves sitting at a table with Tyler and several of his friends, students who had previously occupied an entirely different social stratosphere. The conversation flowed easily, moving from school gossip to music to college plans. Nobody mentioned Mrs. Blackwell or the incident. They just talked, like normal teenagers. As Maya walked back to campus, her stomach full of pizza and her cheeks sore from laughing, she felt something she hadn't felt since starting at Westbrook Academy: hope. The weeks that followed brought more changes. The school implemented a new peer mentoring program, pairing scholarship students with established students to help them navigate the social landscape. Sensitivity training became mandatory for all faculty members. A student diversity council was formed, with Maya elected as one of its founding members. Angela Thompson watched her daughter's transformation with a mixture of pride and relief. The scared, defensive girl who had come home in tears had become a confident young woman who walked through the halls of Westbrook Academy like she owned them. "I got an A on my English paper," Maya announced one evening, waving the graded assignment triumphantly. "Of course you did," Angela replied, smiling. "You're brilliant." Ms. Rodriguez said it was one of the best analyses she's ever read. She wants to submit it to a student writing competition. "That's wonderful, baby. I'm so proud of you." Maya sat down at the kitchen table, her expression turning thoughtful. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you were my age, did you ever feel like you didn't belong somewhere?" Angela considered the question carefully. "All the time. I grew up poor in a rich city, black in a white neighborhood, ambitious in a world that told me to stay small. There were so many places where I felt like an outsider." "How did you deal with it?" "I learned that belonging isn't something other people give you. It's something you claim for yourself. You decide where you fit, and then you make it true through your actions and your character." Maya nodded slowly, processing her mother's words. "Mrs. Blackwell tried to make me feel like I didn't deserve to be at Westbrook," she said, "and for a while I believed her, but now I realize she was wrong. I do belong there, not because of my grades or my scholarship, but because I decided to." Angela reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "That's exactly right, and don't ever let anyone tell you different." The semester continued, and Maya threw herself into her studies with renewed vigor. She joined the debate team and quickly became one of its star members. She started a tutoring program for younger scholarship students, helping them navigate the challenges she had faced. She even began applying for summer internships, her confidence growing with every new opportunity. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still whispers in the hallways, still students who resented her for what had happened to Mrs. Blackwell. One particularly cruel group started a rumor that Maya had faked the whole incident for attention. Another claimed that her mother had used her position at the district attorney's office to unfairly persecute the teacher. Maya learned to let it roll off her back. She had bigger things to worry about than the opinions of people who didn't matter. The real test came in December, when the school announced that Mrs. Blackwell had filed a lawsuit against the academy for wrongful termination. She was also countersuing Maya and her mother for defamation. "This is insane," Destiny said when she heard the news. "She's the one who broke your phone." "Apparently, she claims the video was edited and taken out of context," Maya replied, keeping her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. That evening, Angela sat Maya down for a serious conversation. "I want you to understand what we're facing," Angela said. "Mrs. Blackwell comes from money, old money. She has resources we don't have. This lawsuit could drag on for months, maybe years." "Are we going to be okay?" Angela took a deep breath. I'm not going to lie to you, Maya. It's going to be hard, but I've spent my career fighting for people who don't have power against people who do. This is what I know how to do, and more importantly, we have the truth on our side. What if the truth isn't enough? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I believe in justice, Maya. I have to. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? The lawsuit became a backdrop to Maya's daily life, a constant source of stress that she learned to compartmentalize. She focused on her studies, her extracurriculars, her friendships. She refused to let Mrs. Blackwell win by allowing the legal battle to consume her. In February, a breakthrough came. During the discovery phase of the lawsuit, Maya's mother's legal team uncovered a pattern of complaints against Mrs. Blackwell stretching back over a decade. Former students, faculty members, and even parents had raised concerns about her behavior, all of which had been quietly dismissed by the school administration. "This is systemic," Angela explained to Maya. "It's not just about what happened to you. It's about a culture of protecting powerful people at the expense of vulnerable ones." The discovery also revealed that the Blackwell family had made significant donations to the school in the immediate aftermath of previous complaints, effectively buying silence and complicity. "So she's been doing this for years?" Maya asked, horrified. "It appears so. But you were the one who finally broke the pattern, you and that video." Armed with this new evidence, Angela's legal team went on the offensive. They filed a motion to dismiss Mrs. Blackwell's lawsuit and countersued for harassment and discrimination. The case attracted national attention, with news outlets covering it as an example of educational inequality and the abuse of privilege. Maya found herself in the unexpected position of being a public figure. She received messages of support from strangers across the country, other students who had faced similar situations and were inspired by her story. She also received hate mail, threats from Mrs. Blackwell's supporters who accused her of destroying a good woman's career. Through it all, Maya held on to her mother's words. "The truth is on our side." In April, the case was settled out of court. Mrs. Blackwell dropped her lawsuit and agreed to pay damages to Maya for the destruction of her phone and the emotional distress caused by her actions. She was also banned from working in education for life. The settlement was announced on a sunny Friday afternoon, the first warm day of spring. Maya was in the library when she got the text from her mother. "It's over. We won." She sat there for a long moment, letting the news sink in. Then she put her head down on the table and cried, not from sadness but from sheer, overwhelming relief. Destiny found her there 10 minutes later and wrapped her in a fierce hug. "You did it," Destiny whispered. "You actually did it." "We did it," Maya corrected, her voice muffled against her friend's shoulder. "I couldn't have gotten through this without you." The last weeks of the school year passed in a blur of finals, prom preparations, and end-of-year celebrations. Maya was named Sophomore of the Year at the Academic Awards ceremony, a recognition that would have seemed impossible just 8 months earlier. As she stood on the stage, accepting her plaque, she looked out at the audience of parents and students. She saw Tyler Harrison, who had become one of her closest friends. She saw Madison Prescott, who had turned from a silent bystander into an outspoken ally. She saw her mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face, pride radiating from every pore. "Thank you," Maya said into the microphone, her voice steady and clear. "I want to dedicate this award to every student who has ever been told they don't belong, to everyone who has been made to feel small by people in power. You do belong. Your voice matters. And if you stand up for what's right, even when it's scary, even when it feels impossible, you can change things. Thank you." The applause that followed was thunderous. After the ceremony, Angela pulled Maya aside. "I have something for you," she said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out a small velvet box and pressed it into Maya's hands. Maya opened it to find a delicate silver necklace with a pendant in the shape of a tiny flame. "It was my grandmother's," Angela explained. She gave it to me when I graduated high school. She said it represented the fire inside us, the thing that keeps us going even when the world tries to put us out. I've been waiting for the right moment to give it to you. Maya threw her arms around her mother. I love it. I love you. I love you too, baby, more than you'll ever know. The summer after sophomore year was unlike any Maya had experienced. She was accepted into a prestigious leadership program for underrepresented youth, spending 6 weeks at a university campus learning about public policy, social justice, and community organizing. She met students from all over the country, young people who had faced their own struggles and found their own ways to fight back. They stayed up late talking about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for a better world. When she returned to Westbrook Academy for junior year, Maya was a different person. She walked through those marble halls with a purpose, no longer just surviving, but thriving. The school had changed too. The new principal, a woman named Dr. Christine Park, had implemented sweeping reforms in the wake of the Mrs. Blackwell scandal. The peer mentoring program had expanded. Scholarship students were no longer isolated, but integrated into all aspects of campus life. Faculty training on diversity and inclusion was mandatory and ongoing. Maya continued to excel academically, but she also focused on leaving a legacy. She founded a student organization dedicated to advocating for educational equity, which grew to over 100 members by the end of the year. She mentored incoming scholarship students, sharing her experiences and helping them navigate the challenges she had faced. And through it all, she never forgot where she came from. Every weekend, she returned to her neighborhood, volunteering at the community center, tutoring kids who reminded her of herself. She knew that her success meant nothing if she didn't use it to lift others up. Senior year arrived almost before Maya was ready for it. She'd been accepted to Harvard University with a full scholarship, a dream she had barely allowed herself to dream. Her essay, about standing up to injustice and finding strength in adversity, had caught the attention of the admissions committee. I can't believe this is real, she told Destiny on the night they received their college acceptances. Believe it, Destiny replied. She was headed to Duke on a basketball scholarship, ready to pursue her own dreams. You earned this, Maya, every bit of it. The graduation ceremony was held on a perfect June day, the sun shining down on rows of students in caps and gowns. Maya had been chosen as valedictorian, an honor that would have seemed absurd to the scared freshman who had walked through these gates 4 years ago. As she approached the podium to deliver her speech, she saw faces in the crowd that represented every chapter of her journey. Her mother, of course, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Destiny, whooping loudly from her seat. Tyler and Madison, who had become unlikely but true friends. Ms. Rodriguez, who had helped her rediscover her love of literature. Even Dr. Park, whose reforms had transformed the school into a place where all students could belong. Maya took a deep breath and began to speak. 4 years ago, I walked into Westbrook Academy as an outsider. I was a scholarship student in a world of privilege, a girl from a struggling neighborhood in a school of wealth and power. I was told, in ways both subtle and overt, that I didn't belong, that my presence was a courtesy, a quota to be filled, a box to be checked. For a while I believed it. I kept my head down, tried not to make waves, hoped that if I was good enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, I would somehow earn my place. But I learned something important during my time here. Belonging isn't something you earn by being small. It's something you claim by being brave. When I was challenged by someone who wanted me to fail, I chose to fight back, not with anger or violence, but with courage and truth. And I discovered that I wasn't alone. I had friends who stood by me, teachers who believed in me, a mother who showed me what strength really looks like. But more than that, I discovered that my voice had power, that by speaking up, I could change not just my own circumstances, but the circumstances of others. The reforms that have transformed this school over the past 4 years, they started with one moment of refusing to be silenced. They grew because other people joined in, added their voices to mine, demanded better. I'm not standing here today because I'm special. I'm standing here because I chose to believe that I matter, and I acted on that belief. Every single person in this audience has that same power. You can choose to accept the world as it is, or you can choose to fight for the world as it should be. So as we go out into the world, as we face new challenges and new obstacles, I want you to remember something. You belong wherever you decide to be. Your voice matters, and if you have the courage to use it, you can change everything. Thank you. The applause started slowly, then built to a crescendo. Maya looked out at her classmates, many of whom were on their feet, and felt a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly knocked her over. She had started her journey at Westbrook Academy as a scared, isolated girl who just wanted to survive. She was ending it as a leader, an advocate, a young woman ready to take on the world. As she walked off the stage, her mother was waiting for her, arms open wide. "I'm so proud of you," Angela whispered, holding her daughter close. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." Maya touched the flame pendant at her throat, the one that had belonged to her grandmother, the symbol of the fire that could never be extinguished. "I feel her with me," Maya said. "I always do." The summer before college was a bittersweet time. Maya said goodbye to the neighborhood that had raised her, to the friends who had supported her, to the apartment where she and her mother had shared so many late-night conversations. But she wasn't sad. She was ready. Ready for the next challenge, the next obstacle, the next opportunity to make a difference. On the day she left for Harvard, her mother drove her to the airport. They sat in the car for a long moment, neither wanting to be the first to say goodbye. "You're going to do amazing things," Angela said finally. "You already have." "I learned from the best," Maya replied. They hugged one last time, and then Maya grabbed her bags and walked into the terminal. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She was carrying everything she needed with her, her mother's strength, her grandmother's fire, and the knowledge that she had earned her place in the world. As the plane lifted off, Maya looked out the window at the city shrinking below her. Philadelphia, with all its history and complexity, was just the beginning of her story. She thought about Mrs. Blackwell, who had tried so hard to break her. She thought about the moment when everything had seemed hopeless, when a shattered phone had seemed like the end of the world. She thought about how far she had come, and how far she still had to go. She smiled. The fire inside her was burning brighter than ever, and nothing and no one would ever put it out. 3 years later, Maya Thompson stood at a podium in the Hart Senate office building in Washington, D.C. She was 21 years old, a Harvard junior with a double major in public policy and African American studies, and she was about to testify before a congressional subcommittee on educational equity. The room was packed with legislators, staffers, journalists, and advocates. At a table in the front row sat her mother, Angela Thompson, who had been promoted to assistant district attorney and had become a nationally recognized voice for civil rights reform. "Chairman Williams, Ranking Member Garcia, members of the subcommittee," Maya began, her voice clear and confident. "Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about a crisis that affects millions of American students, the systemic discrimination that persists in our educational institutions. My name is Maya Thompson, and I am a living example of both the promise and the peril of our education system. I was fortunate enough to attend a prestigious private school on a full academic scholarship. But my experience there nearly destroyed me. Not because of the rigorous curriculum, but because of a culture that viewed students like me as outsiders, as charity cases to be tolerated rather than learners to be nurtured." She told her story, from the months of being ignored and belittled to the incident that had finally brought the discrimination to light. She spoke about the other students who had been similarly affected, many of whom had not been as fortunate as she was. She presented data showing that scholarship students across the country faced higher rates of harassment, lower rates of support, and worse outcomes than their wealthier peers. "This is not an issue of individual bad actors," Maya said, her voice rising. "This is a systemic problem that requires systemic solutions. We need federal mandates for diversity training in all schools receiving public funding. We need stronger protections for students who report discrimination. We need accountability measures that ensure schools cannot buy their way out of consequences." I was lucky. I had a mother who knew how to fight back, a video that captured the truth, and a community that rallied behind me. But luck should not be the determining factor in whether a student receives a fair education. Every child deserves to learn in an environment where they are valued and respected, regardless of their economic background. I urge this subcommittee to take action, not tomorrow, not next year, but now. The future of our nation depends on how we treat our most vulnerable children. Let's make sure that future is one we can all be proud of. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Maya looked out at the crowd and saw her mother, tears streaming down her face, clapping harder than anyone. After the hearing, reporters swarmed Maya with questions. She answered them with the poise of someone who had spent years learning to navigate difficult situations. "Miss Thompson, do you think your testimony will actually change anything?" Maya smiled. "Change doesn't happen overnight. It happens one voice at a time, one story at a time, one act of courage at a time. Today was just another step in a long journey, but I believe we will get there." "What's next for you?" "I'm finishing my degree, and then I'm going to law school. I want to spend my life fighting for the rights of students who are where I was. Everyone deserves a champion in their corner." That evening, Maya and Angela had dinner at a small restaurant near the Capitol. They sat across from each other, two women who had been through the fire together and emerged stronger for it. "I'm so proud of you," Angela said. "You've become everything I hoped you would be and more." "I wouldn't be here without you, Mom. Everything I am is because of you." Angela shook her head. "No, baby, you did this. You made the choice to be brave, to stand up, to fight. All I did was give you the tools. You're the one who built something beautiful with them." Maya reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "We did it together. We always have." They sat in comfortable silence. Two generations of Thompson women who had learned that strength wasn't about never falling down. It was about getting up every single time, no matter how hard the world hit you. As they walked out into the cool evening air, the dome of the Capitol glowing against the twilight sky, Maya thought about all the students out there who were facing the same challenges she had faced. The ones who were being told they didn't belong, who were being made to feel small, who were on the verge of giving up. She thought about the phone that had been shattered all those years ago, and how that moment of destruction had paradoxically been the spark that ignited everything else. How a teacher's cruelty had backfired so completely that it ended up changing not just Maya's life, but the lives of countless others. She thought about Mrs. Victoria Blackwell, who was now living in obscurity somewhere in Florida, her teaching career over, her reputation ruined. Maya didn't feel vindicated by the woman's downfall. She felt sad for her, for the bitterness that must have consumed her, for the opportunities to do good that she had squandered. But mostly Maya thought about the future, about the fights that still needed to be fought, the changes that still needed to be made, the voices that still needed to be heard. She was just getting started. The flame inside her burned bright, and it was ready to light the way for everyone who would come after. 5 years had passed since Maya graduated from Harvard Law School. She had turned down lucrative offers from corporate firms to work for a civil rights organization focused on educational equity. Her salary was modest, but her impact was enormous. Under her leadership, the organization had filed and won dozens of lawsuits against schools that discriminated against low-income students. They had helped pass legislation in a dozen states mandating stronger protections for scholarship students. They had created a national hotline that provided free legal assistance to families facing educational discrimination. Maya had become one of the most recognizable faces in the educational justice movement. She was invited to speak at conferences, to consult with policymakers, to advise presidential candidates. And through it all, she remained grounded in the same values her mother had instilled in her: courage, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to truth. Angela Thompson had retired from the district attorney's office and now spent her time volunteering at community organizations, mentoring young women who reminded her of Maya. She was proud of everything her daughter had accomplished, but even prouder of the person she had become. One autumn evening, Maya received an unexpected phone call. "Miss Thompson, this is Principal David Chen from Westbrook Academy. I was wondering if you might be interested in speaking at our annual Scholarship Awards ceremony." Maya was silent for a moment, memories flooding back. The marble halls, the cold stairs, the shattering phone. It had been 15 years since she had set foot on that campus. "I'm surprised you would ask me," she said finally, "given our history." Principal Chen, who had taken over after Dr. Park retired, chuckled. "Our history is precisely why I'm asking. The current generation of scholarship students knows your story. You're something of a legend here. I think it would mean a lot to them to hear from you in person." Maya thought about it for a long moment. Then she said yes. A month later, she walked through the familiar iron gates of Westbrook Academy. The campus looked the same, with its manicured lawns and imposing brick buildings. But the atmosphere was different. Groups of students from diverse backgrounds mingled freely. Posters advertising the Maya Thompson Scholarship Fund, which she had established years ago, lined the hallways. In the auditorium, she stood before a sea of young faces, students who had been born after the incident that had defined her teenage years. She told her story, just as she had told it to Congress, to conferences, to anyone who would listen. And she saw herself reflected in their eyes, the hope, the fear, the determination. "I stand before you today not as someone who has all the answers," Maya said, her voice filling the room, "but as someone who has learned that the questions we ask are just as important as the answers we find. Question injustice when you see it. Question assumptions that limit you. Question anyone who tells you that you don't belong. You are the future of this school, this community, this country, and the future is not determined by what has been, but by what can be. So dream big, work hard, and never let anyone tell you that your dreams are too ambitious or your voice is too small. Because I promise you, your voice is the most powerful weapon you will ever possess. Use it wisely, use it boldly, use it to change the world." After the ceremony, Maya walked through the campus one last time. She paused outside room 312, which was now a computer lab, and remembered the girl she had been on that terrible day when her phone had been destroyed. She had been so afraid then, afraid of failing, afraid of not belonging, afraid of what the future might hold. Now, looking back, she realized that all of her fears had been unfounded, not because bad things hadn't happened, but because she had found the strength to overcome them. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her mother. "Saw the news coverage. You were beautiful, so proud of you. Love always, Mom." Maya smiled and typed back, "Couldn't have done it without you. Love you too." She slipped her phone into her pocket and walked back toward the front gates. The autumn leaves crunched under her feet, the same sound she remembered from that first morning when she had walked to Westbrook Academy as a terrified 15-year-old. So much had changed since then. She had changed, but the fire inside her, the one her grandmother had passed down, the one her mother had nurtured, burned as brightly as ever. Maya Thompson stepped through the iron gates and into the rest of her life, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Because she knew now, more than ever, that she belonged wherever she chose to be, and she chose to be everywhere that mattered. The following year, Maya received the National Medal for Public Service in Education from the President of the United States. At the White House ceremony, she stood in the East Room, surrounded by dignitaries, celebrities, and fellow honorees. But her eyes kept drifting to one person in the front row, her mother, Angela Thompson, who had traveled from Philadelphia for the occasion. Angela was 62 years old now, her hair fully gray, her face lined with the marks of a life well lived. But her eyes were as sharp as ever, and they shone with tears of pride. When Maya's name was called, she walked to the podium to receive her medal. The president, a woman who had been elected on a platform of educational reform, draped the ribbon around Maya's neck and shook her hand. "Thank you for everything you've done," the president said quietly. "You've inspired a generation." Maya looked out at the audience, at the cameras, at the history being made. "I'm just getting started," she replied. And she meant it, because Maya Thompson had learned that change didn't come from waiting for permission. It came from demanding justice, from raising your voice, from refusing to be silenced. She had learned it in the halls of a prestigious school that had tried to break her. She had learned it from a mother who had sacrificed everything for her future. She had learned it from a shattered phone that had become a symbol of everything she was fighting against. And she would spend the rest of her life teaching that lesson to others. The fire burned on. It always would. In her acceptance speech that day, Maya said something that would be quoted in newspapers and textbooks for years to come. Power doesn't belong to those who are born with it. It belongs to those who claim it. And the only thing more powerful than one voice raised in protest is 1,000 voices rising together. So if you see injustice, speak up. If you witness cruelty, stand against it. If you feel alone, reach out. Because I promise you, there are others out there who feel exactly the same way you do. And together, we are unstoppable. The room erupted in applause, and Maya Thompson smiled. She was 31 years old, and she had already changed the world. But she wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. As the ceremony concluded and the guests began to mingle, Angela made her way through the crowd to her daughter's side. "I remember the day I got that call from your school," she said, taking Maya's hand. "I was so scared. I thought your whole future might be ruined." "Instead, it was just beginning," Maya replied. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Angela asked. "I think about Mrs. Blackwell. I wonder if she has any idea what her cruelty set in motion. The scholarships named after you, the laws passed because of your advocacy, the thousands of students whose lives are better because you decided to fight back." Maya considered this. "I hope she doesn't know. I hope she's living her life without any idea of the good that came from her hate, because the best revenge isn't making your enemies suffer. It's succeeding so completely that they become irrelevant." Angela squeezed her daughter's hand. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." They stood together in the East Room of the White House, mother and daughter, two women who had started with nothing and built something extraordinary. Outside the windows, the sun was setting over Washington, D.C., painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A new day was ending. But for Maya Thompson, and for all the students who would follow in her footsteps, a new era was just beginning. The fire that had been lit in that classroom all those years ago, when a teacher's hatred had collided with a young girl's courage, would never be extinguished. It would only grow brighter, and it would light the way forward for generations to come. Maya touched the flame pendant at her throat, the one her grandmother had worn, the one her mother had given her. "We did it," she whispered to herself, to her mother, to everyone who had ever believed in her. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of her heart, she heard her grandmother's voice answering back, "You always knew you would. The end of one story is always the beginning of another." And Maya Thompson's story, the story of a scholarship student who refused to be broken, was far from over. It was only just beginning to be written. By her. By everyone she had inspired, by the unbreakable fire that burns in the heart of everyone who dares to stand up for what's right. That fire is in all of us. We just have to choose to let it burn. And when we do, there's no limit to what we can achieve, no barrier we cannot break, No injustice we cannot overcome. This is the lesson Maya Thompson learned, the lesson she spent her life teaching others. And it's a lesson that will echo through time, inspiring generations of dreamers and fighters and believers. Because the fire never dies. It just keeps burning brighter and brighter and brighter until it illuminates the whole world. The morning sun cast long shadows across Jefferson Heights as a new generation of students made their way to school. Among them was a girl named Jasmine Carter, 15 years old, with dreams in her heart and a scholarship to Westbrook Academy in her hand. She walked past the old apartment complex where Maya Thompson had once lived, past the community center where Maya had volunteered, past the streets that had shaped one of the most important civil rights leaders of her generation. Jasmine didn't know all of this history. She only knew that she had won the Maya Thompson Scholarship and that it was going to change her life. As she approached the iron gates of Westbrook Academy, a strange sense of peace settled over her. She belonged here. She had earned her place. And if anyone ever tried to tell her differently, she would remember the story of Maya Thompson, the girl who had turned a shattered phone into a movement, hatred into hope, and pain into power. Jasmine straightened her shoulders and walked through the gates. A new chapter was beginning, and the fire burned on,